Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is our very first podcast for Business is Personal. I just want to say thank you so much for my guests for joining me. This is Claire Elliott. She's CEO of Employee.com. That's MPLOYII, for those of you who are listening. And this is Lulu Khazenbaz, and she is the CEO of Nabbesh.com. That's NABBESH.com, for those of you who are following on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a really huge pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Because we're talking about business being personal, and both of you are digital entrepreneurs and amazing at what you do, by the way, I wanted to start the topic off with you. I want to talk about why we're in business, because that's going to lead us into everything else we discuss in terms of business being personal. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about why Nabbesh and why Employee.
So for me, I had been working in Dubai for around 9 years across different industries and different roles as well. And I decided at the time that I didn't want to be an employee. I felt that there were a lot of gaps in the market, that there was a big opportunity in the region to do a startup and to do something, especially in the digital space. So I decided to take some time off and think about the next steps. And then while I was taking the time off, I wanted to find some consulting gigs so that I can, stay in the market and continue building my network and so on. And it was very difficult for me to market myself as a consultant, because most platforms out there are designed for full-time jobs. So for me to be able to say I want to work on a project was very challenging. So I had to reach out to my network, and you have to do a lot of work to try and find those particular jobs. And this is how the idea for Nabbesh came about. And the idea was really to link people in my situation that don't want to work full-time for whatever reason, that have skills and expertise, and they just want to work on projects of their own choosing. And that's how Nabbesh was born.
How long ago was it?
That was so I started working on the concept in 2011, and we launched in 2012.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Claire, why Employee? Where does that come from?
It comes from the fact that I've been in the corporate game for a long time, a long time for me. 20 years kind of towing the corporate line, if that makes sense. And I decided that I wanted to leave a legacy as a bit of a contrived statement, but I wanted to go into an organisation where I can continue being a disruptor and continue to be a transformation agent.
Yeah, good.
Because what's important to me is working with clients, working in an organisation, working with people where there's a value set in line with my own personal beliefs. And whilst, I could hopefully transition to most, organisations with my skill set and my background. For me now, it's not about a paycheck. I'm quite intrinsically driven. For me, it's actually around, do I value the values of the organisation? Can I make a difference? And quite rightly, do they value the people within the organisation?
Yeah, of course.
Does everybody buy into a vision? And I think that's come because of the fact that I'm quietly confident in my own capabilities. But also I'm at that stage where I want to impart.
Of course.
So that's why I set up Employees. So, I don't envisage being a multimillionaire overnight. That would be nice. But what I do enjoy is selecting my clients because they're either in line with my values or they're giving me that opportunity to impart them.
There's more and more people actually making those kinds of decisions, not just from an employee standpoint, but from a product and service standpoint. They're choosing products, choosing services, and choosing jobs based on the alignment of their values with the values of the company that represents those products or services or those positions.
It's almost like when you did Tinder for organisations. When you can swipe right or swipe left based on, is it in line with how I want to be?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. For me, I think business is personal boils down to one negative and one positive input. So the negative input for me is when people say, look, it's not personal, it's just business. And that's usually at the end of a conversation where they've made a decision that's going to hurt you. Right? And then of course, it's personal. And you say, oh yeah, it's fine, it's just business, it's not personal. But then you walk away without the win.
But you can still have conversations that are negatively impacting.
Of course.
We want to use the word negatively impacting. It's about the positioning, and it's about change management, and it's about people understanding the whys. And at school, I remember my parents always being called in because they thought I was naughty. It's not because I was naughty, it's because I always asked why.
Yeah.
Why? You know, you can regurgitate stuff from a textbook, but unless I understand why, then it didn't work. And I think the same thing in business is that business is personal, because unless every single person in the organisation understands why they're there and what their impact is, whether it's a driver or whether it's a C-level individual, then it isn't personal. Yeah,
that leads me to the positive input is Mohammed and ketchup, actually. Yeah, ketchup is okay. So I did some consulting for a company in Oman that are the #1 producers of ketchup in the region. They're amazing, very good at making ketchup. And I thought, you know what? So I met this guy on the line, his name is Mohammed, and I thought, you know what, I don't know how he woke up in the morning one day and said, oh, I'm going to be a manufacturer of ketchup, or if that was something he dreamed about as a kid. I know my sister-in-law, she loves ketchup, but you know, but nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh man, you know what, I just really want to manufacture ketchup for the rest of my life. So I asked Mohammed, I was like, why are you here? And he's like, oh no, I'm here not because I'm passionate about ketchup, I'm here because I'm passionate about my kids. I've got kids, they're in school, they need to be educated, and that's why I'm here, you know, making an exchange of time and services for finances in order to provide a better service to my family. So I thought that's a really excellent way to look at a manufacturing position. And actually all positions, is that people aren't there, generally speaking, because they're aligned necessarily with the goals and vision and mission of the company. They may be, as you said, Claire, aligned with the values, for sure, but they may not be passionate about manufacturing ketchup. However, they're definitely passionate about their families, and they see that their contribution to manufacturing ketchup is a contribution to achieving their personal goals. And it may be that they want education for their kids, they want better health care for their parents, they might want to buy an island or a new car at some point, or take a nice holiday every once in a while. So everybody's goals are different, but the reason that they participate in the organization is entirely personal. It's not corporate.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Lula?
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, it's especially for an entrepreneur, it's actually very personal. And throughout your journey as an entrepreneur, you go through a lot of different life cycles, from from trying to convince your first customers, to trying to raise the first round of money, to trying to convince someone to join your company. And every no that you get is obviously there's a lesson behind it, but it's also hurtful as well, and it is personal.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I did hear it that it's not personal a lot of times, and I know that it shouldn't be, but it cannot not be, especially for entrepreneurs.
Especially for entrepreneurs.
And you're right, especially if it's said in the context of delivering bad news. That's also, I mean, that would, there's no way it wouldn't be taken personal then,
that's right.
if that's the case. Maybe not so much in the corporate environment. I don't know. Maybe you're willing to accept more rejection or comments or so on. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think it's very different, because you're so passionate about it, and it's very difficult to be given news or.
Well, I think even in a corporate setting, someone with a typical 9-to-5 desk job, I think if they're not connecting with their role at work in a way that's meaningful to them personally, then they're wasting a third of their lives. Because for as long as you're with that company, you're there for a year, 10 years, doesn't matter. For the period of time that you're sitting in that corporate environment, you're dedicating a third of your life to that team, to that community. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you may not have to be passionate about ketchup, but if you're not passionate about the values that you represent or the people that are around you, then of course you're burning a third of your life every day. And why would you want to do that? And I think more and more employees are starting to realize that they have the opportunity to move around within a company or to other companies in order to find that sense of meaning and purpose. And when you provide meaning and you provide purpose in an employee's role, whether it's Mohammed's manufacturing job on a ketchup line, or somebody in HR, or somebody in finance, it doesn't matter. When you're able to provide that meaning and that sense of purpose to an employee or to an entrepreneur, that's when people start living their lives and their productivity goes up.
I totally agree. I mean, I love that story about JFK when he goes to NASA. So the abridged version is he goes to NASA on one of his little trips, and of course he's surrounded by sycophantic people who are all kind of, oh, the president's come, and the president makes time for the cleaner. And he shook the janitor's hand and he said, hi, I'm JFK, who are you? And the janitor responded with his name. He goes, "Oh, what do you do?" So he's trying to engage. He's trying to engage with the janitor, full knowing he's a cleaner. And the cleaner responded by saying, "I helped put man on the moon." Wow. And for me, that was a really, really powerful story because he saw the bigger purpose. Yeah. So whilst he appreciated he had his role as a janitor, you know, the small things, interventions he was doing each day aided getting man on the moon. And I really, really loved that story. But I hear what you're saying. I fear that, and I think this can be implemented in every company, but I think it comes down to lazy leadership. So I think as leaders or as managers, we have a duty of care to install that vision and the values. Yeah. But I rarely see it done well. And to your point, then people don't really know why they're going to work. They don't know how they're impacting, and they're not listened to. So the engagement piece around, if I'm going to sell myself to you every single day as an employee, what's in it for me? Yeah. And I think the what's in it for me thing's becoming more and more of a prominent question when you've got the new generation of folk coming in saying, okay, you know, what's in it for me if I come to work every day? So it's a contract, I think, between employee and employer now.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I think, personally, I've led a lot of strategy discussions with companies here in Europe, around the world, helping them to produce their corporate vision, mission, values, and goals. In the beginning, when I started, it was about 15 years ago. I did my first kind of corporate strategy sessions and that sort of thing, and it was fine just to deal with the corporate language. But now I don't do it anymore. As of about, 6 or 7 years ago, I stopped doing corporate alone. And now I don't talk about vision, mission, values, and goals unless I'm also talking about the personal mission, vision, values, and goals of the people sitting around the table making those decisions. Because actually that's where it comes from. It's a conglomeration of the values of the people around the table, the goals of the people around the table. They're all there to improve the quality of their lives and those of their kids and to improve their career. So they have personal vision, they have personal goals. And it's only when we acknowledge those things, bring them up onto the table, and then see, okay, so what kind of game can we play better than anyone else on the world with this combination of talent? And they start to understand.
You mentioned lazy leadership, which is actually an interesting comment because, again, when you're an entrepreneur, it's all about selling your vision, right? Yeah. So that vision, mission, even though it might not be written as a statement, it's there from day one.
That's right.
You need to convince people to join you, sometimes for less pay, sometimes for equity, sometimes for different kind of combination. But it's so important that they're bought into the vision from day one, irrespective of their job within the startup. Everyone is bought in. And you're right, potentially when companies get bigger, maybe they become complacent, maybe they don't think that there is a need for the manufacturing guy to have to believe in something bigger, and I think this is where the problem lies.
Yeah,
but this is changing as well. I mean, that's why a lot of management have difficulty managing millennials, and everyone talks about the millennials and how like they're difficult to manage. But I mean, why? Because they have certain values. They want something out of the job. They want more fulfillment. Yeah. They're not afraid to walk away from a job, and these are things that are very new. Before you used to be in a job for 20 years, 40 years for life, exactly, and now all of that's changing. So
there's an implicit demand among millennials for meaning and purpose as a part of the job offer, right? Like you have the job offer, and it's okay. You get 4 weeks of holiday, you get your flight tickets back, you get your medical care, this is your salary. But there's an implicit now demand for meaning. They want to have life fulfillment because they understand they're sacrificing a good chunk of time that they're never going to get back.
Exactly, it's that realization that you mentioned in the beginning that I'm spending 2/3 of my life doing something. I better like it, otherwise it's a big problem.
It needs to be meaningful.
It's a big problem, especially if it's taking you away from time from your family, time from your children, time
social
from
media. Social media.
From social media. Well, but then you really have to weigh it and see how important it is to get that salary for you to stick around, or if there are other options.
So I think maybe
that's why freelancing is very big. Sorry, that's why
absolutely.
I mean that's why there's research now in the U.S. We don't have numbers in this part of the world, but in the U.S. By 2020, they estimate 50% of the working population will be freelancing.
Yeah, I've heard that stat actually.
So it's incredible, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that tells you that tells you a lot.
Yeah, corporations are breaking apart as service centers, and so you'll be able to actually build the company that you want out of the freelancers that are available for the price that you want to pay. Yeah, I restructured one family group here about 2 years ago, second generation leadership.
Yeah.
So the first generation, the founder, he had passed away, Alhamdulillah. He's an amazing guy. But he had built the whole company up from his blood, sweat, and tears over the course of the lifetime of his son.
Yeah.
So his son grew up as a child in the hallways of that business, right? And so that business was like the de facto other child of the father. And you know, so when the father died and the son came on, it was his responsibility on behalf of the family to lead that company. Well, he wasn't particularly passionate about what the company did, but he was particularly passionate about his father's legacy.
Yeah.
Right? So he had to protect that legacy, because if the company goes down after the father passes away, well, then it's like burying dad all over again.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So in that sense, the survival of the company was the survival of their father's memory. And it was, for them, it was intensely personal. So at the end of the restructuring process, I went through the mission and vision, values and goals with them, with the new chairman and his executive team. And I asked them around the table, because I had done their personal values, their personal vision, as well as the corporate vision and values. Yeah. So I asked them, is this the kind of company that you want to dedicate a third of your life to? And each one of them, is this the kind of company you want to dedicate a third of your life to? Because that's what you're actually doing. That's the transaction you're making. That's the trade-off. And one by one, they're like, yes, absolutely. I want to do this for a third of my life for as long as I'm with this company. And then when I got to the chairman and I asked him, I said, is this the kind of is this the company that your father built? And he just, right there in the boardroom, broke down crying.
Because I like to think sometimes as an employee or employer or a leader or a manager, you win hearts and minds, not just work output. So that's why I liked that story, and that's why I kind of brought the family group dynamic in, because I think the family group is so much more personal, it's more hearts and minds. And you need to win them as well as the values piece. You need to get people to understand the story and the legacy as well. That's right. For them to feel part of the fabric of a group like that.
So let me ask you, Lulu, what are your values? What kinds of values are you looking for in people that you partner with at Nabish?
Interesting. For partners, definitely, I think it would be honesty. I think honesty is very important. Even if you have good or bad news, I think being honest is always very important. I think it aligns a lot with how I am as well as a person, and I try to be genuine and honest, as you know, all the time. Yeah. And I would expect that people do the same. And if they're not, I actually get quite disappointed. I like people that are passionate, basically that have passion for what they do. It really upsets me when I see people that like squander their lives, you know, and do things that they're not passionate about. Especially, for example, when you meet employees sometimes of a company and they talk badly about the company, and that really upsets me, because it's, again, it happens, but it shouldn't be. It's just wrong.
Yeah, that's your team.
They're supposed to be ambassadors of your brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is also very important for you to have that passion. And by the way, I'm talking about partners now, because you asked me what do we look for.
Yeah, of course.
So for them to be passionate about what they do as well is very important, and honest. I think those would be the two big ones.
Passion and honesty, I like that.
Yeah, because if they're not passionate, then I will lose interest as well in working with them.
Of course. Claire?
No, I like those. You chose the best ones. So I'll choose the ones that's slightly more left field, because that's what I'm known for. So when I'm hiring people, I like to think that trustworthy as much as that I don't micromanage. So I'm hiring this person because I'm taking them at that face value. I like people, I look for values around disruptivity.
Wow.
So I do really enjoy meeting people who not necessarily push the envelope, who can quickly assess a situation and look to see how it can be improved, look for efficiencies, look for new ways of thinking. That's because I ask why all the time. I like there's a fine line, like you said, that between brave and arrogance. But I like people who, once again, are able to, who feel confident enough to question things and to get people on board and take them on journeys. I quite like individuals who have that kind of value.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who walks in and just is black and white and does the same old. There's roles for them, but also I really appreciate people who like to go into an organisation and always think about innovation, always think about change, always think about how can I leave a legacy, whether that's just rebuilding a process or looking at automation, and sometimes brave is about that as well, isn't it? When you're looking at automation, you could be actually changing the way people work dramatically, and being brave enough to make comments around that as well.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I have 5 core values that I've been living by for a number of years. I'm going to continue to live by them. Passion is actually one of my 5 values. So I totally align with you on that. Passion, destiny. I think people should have I have a strong sense of purpose in my life, so I think destiny is really important to me. Generosity, to be able to give a little bit more than you should. Curiosity drives absolutely everything that I do. Curiosity is my master value. Yeah. It's behind almost everything. So the idea, like you said in the beginning, asking why do we do it this way? Why do we call this the best practice, right? We call it the best practice because that's the best that we know of now, but is there something better than our best? And that curiosity kind of drives me, and then loyalty. Those who are with me tend to stay with me.
Yeah, so. That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've all said being good corporate citizens as well as good.
Yeah, of course.
Good citizens, good people. I think there's a lot to say for treating others how you want to be treated yourself. Actually, we ham it down depending on our audience, but at the end of the day, I think I like to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
So that's really important to me too.
So we're getting into a new technological age, not just in digital marketing, but in actual computation. So there was a recent discussion between Joe Rogan and Elon Musk about artificial intelligence and its impact on business. And as we discussed, business is personal. So more and more artificial intelligence is going to take over a lot of business decisions. And so those decisions, even though they'll have personal impact, won't be made with any personal motive at all. So a purchasing decision will be made by a piece of software rather than somebody standing across from you at a negotiating table. So how do you feel about the depersonalization of business decisions?
It's happening. I think whether you like it or not, it's already happening, and it's going to continue going in that direction. The argument to that is that while it may make some jobs obsolete, it will create a lot of new jobs as well.
Sure.
So we don't know actually how the future is going to look like, and maybe having a machine do a procurement job, basically, maybe it is better. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't have a lot of comment on that, but I think it's definitely something that no one can measure, or no one would know how it's gonna be. It's just changing quite fast, and I think a lot of jobs are gonna be obsolete because of that. Even I read there was a research a while back, basically that said that even things like AI would potentially write stories, books, novels, and things like that. I mean, it's
exactly waiting for the first piece of romantic
lawyers
poetry
as well. Legal jobs will be affected. Everyone's going to be affected in a way or another.
It's so true. I work with AI now.
Do you?
So yeah, I do.
What's the application?
So I do a lot with IBM, Google, Watson, those kind of technologies. Wow. So I think, like you've said, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, because I think with everything there's a negative and a positive connotation with it. So the positive connotations I can think in terms of collapsing work processes. So we use it at work, for example, in product identification. So I do a lot of work on research, and one of the research projects we did was with women, and we asked them to take photographs of their top 3 makeup items.
Wow.
And of course, when we run it through the analytics very quickly, but quicker than any human being, we're able to do a lot of data segmentation and come up with lots of information around those products that faster than a human could do. And absolutely, I love that. Once again, though, that is putting someone out of a job. But to the client, we've collapsed the time it took for them to get that data. So there's a catch-all for everything. And what you said interestingly about AI replacing things like procurement and lawyers. You see, for me, it's really interesting because, if you're programming AI, then there's black and white, and it will operate in black and white, and the output will be black and white. But in those kind of, especially in legal, there has to be, should there be a human intervention? Does the human beings, in terms of their spectrum of emotions, need to be involved to make some of the decisions? So there's legal things like contract reading and writing that, would you feel AI comfortable doing it? Yeah, I would. Would I want an AI judge sitting and listening to me in court? Probably not. Even though they say AI can read face and do voice sentiment, you're still handing it over to a machine. So I think it's going to be interesting, like you said, to see where it goes. And I've been doing some work with, wrote a paper actually on how AI is used in Amazon. And you're absolutely spot on in terms of, robots replacing on the production line, and in the future they're thinking about doing 3D printing, so they own blueprints and people just print the products at leisure in the future. So from a business perspective it sounds fantastic, but are we missing the human intervention? Are we missing the consumer experience would change so much? And if we apply it in the workplace, you could be peer ranked against a machine. I'm not sure if I feel so comfortable about that. Do you know what I mean? So it's interesting.
No, it's so true. I think even now is it Sichi that's using AI for recruitment? So they're actually evaluating the emotional, based on the emotions of candidates, the writing that they produce and their speech patterns, they're determining the potential of those candidates for housing certain skills in the future. Do they have potential? So now the potential of somebody can be judged by AI in a meaningful way for a corporation to make a hiring decision.
Do you not think in future, like 50 years' time, we'll have courts who say there were biased decisions were made when AI was introduced, and all of a sudden there'll be positive discrimination cases where people feel that they don't want to be measured by those because, for example, learning difficulties. People maybe on autism or something like that. How would they react in front of some of these technologies, and how would they be measured and judged? In terms of diversity and inclusion, how does that fit into?
It would have a tremendous negative effect on the tolerance agenda, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of the tolerance agenda, here in the UAE, there's a lot of companies that are doing layoffs now. They're cutting back a little bit. They're saying the economy is a little bit sluggish. And so that has an effect on the morale of those companies when they have to do that. So there's a few cutbacks I know in a couple of my clients' companies recently, and that has a negative impact on the rest of the company in terms of morale. And you speak to that in terms of the when we talk about business being personal, when you have to lay someone off, and I've had to do it myself, so I know that pain when you sit and say, look, it's a business decision.
It's not personal.
It's not personal. We're just making a business decision, and unfortunately, you're going to lose your job over this business decision. I've been in that painful situation, and now there's a lot of people in the UAE that are experiencing that. So in that sense, it's intensely personal. But what's then the overall effect on the morale of the company and on the productivity of the other workers?
Definitely impact the morale if it's not handled properly, if it's not managed properly. I think that these are very sensitive issues. I've been through actually a redundancy en masse where hundreds of us were let go on the same day, and we were called in the morning to the manager's office, and we were handed in an envelope, and then off we go by the end of the day.
Did you know it was coming?
No, it's funny you say that, because we thought it would come, and then a week before that happened, we were on a company team building exercise at a nice hotel. And basically, we were told that the company is doing great, and like there's no worries, and your jobs are safe, and so on. And then 1 week later, a lot of us were let go, and it's a wake-up call, right? I mean, I mean, I've been on both sides where I was part of a redundancy, and I also had to let people go myself and throughout my journey, and it's not, there's no easy way of doing it, but it's definitely a wake-up call. And for me, actually, it was after that redundancy that I started thinking about entrepreneurship. And I started thinking about, okay, I was in the company, I was doing great, I was getting promoted. I didn't think, I wasn't planning on leaving.
Yeah, sure.
And it just happened, you know, just one day I had just like got married, came back from honeymoon, bought an apartment, and then all of a sudden, you lose the job. And I think it happens, and that's why people shouldn't be too complacent in their jobs, and that's why the idea of always like skilling yourself and always learning new things and being curious and maybe even changing jobs. I think people that are in a job for 10 years are especially in a dangerous position. I mean, I know people, friends of mine, that have been in the corporate life with one company for like 17 years or 18 years. And even if they want to leave, they don't know who would hire them. You know, because they're so senior within the company, and they're kind of they're shackled in a way, and they're too scared to make an entrepreneurial move because they have commitments, they have a certain lifestyle, and they're really stuck. But these people, if they are let go for a reason or another, you know, it's which happens. So I don't know what the remedy is, but it does happen. I think people should start believing that it might happen. You know, having a full-time job is not for life anymore. Job security is not for life anymore. You might lose your job at any time. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we embrace that chaos now. I think millennials, on average, turn over their jobs every 2 years.
I'll be a millennial forever then.
You'll be a millennial forever? All right, well, I want to say thank you so much for joining me for our very first podcast. It was an excellent conversation, and I think we're going to revisit this topic again. So thank you to Claire Elliott from employee.com. That's MPLOYII.com for those of you who are following on the podcast.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Lulu, from nabish.com. That's NABBESH.com. Yeah, you can find them there. All right.
Thank you very much, Corey.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
My
Corey.
pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks.